Hello everybody, here we are today doing a second round series review between the Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Rangers. But before we get started with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So game one is in the Big Apple as the Hurricanes are trying to pick up a road win in New York. Mika Zibanejad ends up getting the first goal of the series as the Rangers are up 1-0. But you would see Jacob Slavin get his first goal of the postseason about a minute later as it is all tied up at 1-1. Now Carolina's PK was the best in the NHL during the regular season, but we would see an issue with it as the Hurricanes would allow two power play goals, one by Zibanejad and another one by Trocheck, as it is now 3-1 after the first period of play. Again, the Rangers are having a good start to this game and hoping to be able to pick up that game one victory for the fans. In the second period, wouldn't see any goals as it is still a 3-1 game after 40 minutes of play. The Hurricanes need to have something happen early in the third to be able to get back into the thick of this, or just in the third in general. Nitschus is able to help out in this regard as he scores a goal. It is now just a one-goal game at 3-2 with the possibility of Carolina still getting the win. A little later in the third, Artemi Panarin says, "I'm not really feeling that. I want to give my team a little bit more of a cushion," and he gets a goal to make it a 4-2 game. Seth Jarvis later in the third period would score for Carolina to make it 4-3, but ultimately it would be the Rangers end up picking up a win in game one as the Hurricanes are 0-for-5 on the man advantage, something to watch out for in this series. So of course game two is still in New York and it's Alexis Lafreniere that gets the opening goal of this game. So just like in game one, the Rangers get the first goal. And interestingly enough, through the first 32 career playoff games for Alexis, he had just 2 goals, whereas now he's got 1 in this, and he would have a few goals in this series, just something to watch out for. But the Hurricanes would respond with goals of their own. And that was thanks to Jake Guentzel and Dmitry Orlov scoring goals to give this team their first lead of the game and their first lead of the series as they're up 2-1. Dmitry Orlov actually ended up scoring his goal with 6 minutes left in the period as the Hurricanes are able to take a lead into the break. And then in the second period, it would be Alexis Lafreniere who ends up scoring again in this game as he has 2 goals in 2 periods. As before, like I said, 32 games, just 2 goals in the postseason before this. Things are looking good as the Rangers have tied it up. However, Jake Guentzel, the guy that ended up being a big addition for the Carolina Hurricanes, does score a goal here as it is 3-2 Carolina after 40 minutes of play. And there's only 1 goal scored in the third period. That would be Chris Kreider on the power play, and this ends up forcing overtime. And in overtime, there are no goals, which means we get double overtime. And what happens there? Well, we would see in double OT, Vincent Trocheck score a power play goal as the Rangers end up winning this one 4-3 as they take a 2-0 series lead. Carolina again is 0-for-5 on the power play, so 0-for-10 in the series. As for New York, they are 2-for-7. So at this point in the first 2 games, the Rangers have 4 power play goals and the Hurricanes have none, as they are down in a relatively big hole, I guess if you want to say, after 2 games trying to rally back at home. So in game 3, we would see a change in net as Peter Kochetkov would end up getting the start instead of Freddie Anderson. And this was something that we talked about in a previous video with Kochetkov being a younger goalie. You don't want to see the team end up going down 3-0, then throwing him out there in game 4 and saying, oh, we have to win all these games. So we do see a change, and the Hurricanes are starting this game relatively strong as they outshoot the Rangers 17-7 through the first period and had a Jake Guentzel goal as they are up 1-0. And in the second period, we would see just 1 goal. This would be Chris Kreider, but it'd be a shorthanded goal as the Rangers are able to tie it up, make it a 1-1 game. And at this point, after 2 periods of play, they're being outshot 37-18. At the start of the second, you would see the Rangers actually take a lead, again thanks to Alexis Lafreniere as he scores his 3rd playoff goal in the past 2 games. This guy, he might be a good player, I don't know. So in the third period, the Canes are desperately trying to avoid going down 3-0 in this series. They end up pulling Kochetkov, and you would see Andrei Svechnikov score a 6-on-5 goal to force overtime. And in overtime, it would be the New York Rangers with Artemi Panarin scoring the game-winning goal as the Rangers end up winning this one 3-2 in overtime. Again, back-to-back OTWs as the Rangers have to be feeling really good. They didn't score any power play goals, but the Carolina Hurricanes didn't either as their power play woes continue, and now they are in a spot where they have to try to make hockey history. So for game 4, we're going to see Freddie get the start again over Kochetkov as this is a must-win game. The Hurricanes literally cannot afford to lose this or their season is done, and they would see goals by Guentzel and Nason that would allow them to go up 2-0 in this one and hopefully find a way to get a victory and force a game 5 in New York. My apologies, it wasn't Gitzel, it was Kuznetsov. But anyway, the Rangers see William Cooley end up scoring a goal to make it a 2-1 game, but Sebastian Aho would regain the multi-goal lead for the Hurricanes as they're up 3-1 after 20, trying to find a way to the finish line as they haven't been able to get the job done in any of their first 3 games against New York. Then we would see 25 combined shots in the second period, but only 1 goal. That'd be Barclay Goodrow. And in the third, you would see Alexis Lafreniere, yet again, a 4th goal in 3 games as the Rangers are able to tie this one up. Probably again thinking, hey, maybe we could go and force this one into overtime. That's worked out well for us the past 2 games, but we would see something big here as Ryan Lindgren would be called for tripping, I believe, and the Hurricanes late in this game are able to go on the power play in a tied game where their series is, basically over. And you see Brady Shea, snapping the long drought for the Hurricanes as they were 0 for 16 on the man advantage before this. They score a power play goal and are able to win this one and force a Game 5 back in New York and try to maybe again get back to Game 6 back in Carolina. So Game 5 back at Madison Square Garden, the Rangers looking to put this series away, and the Hurricanes knowing that they have to find a way to get this one back home. You would see an opening period where there are no goals, so it is still very tense as both teams trying to find a way to make things happen. In the second, you would see 1 goal. It would be a short-handed goal by Jacob Trouba, and the Rangers have a 1-0 lead after 40 minutes of play. And I know good and well that Hurricanes fans had to be seething. Trouba had his moments in the series, diving towards the boards, you remember that, and then he is a player we all know that will cross that line or stay very close to that line on what you feel about him and how far he takes things. And to see him possibly have the series-winning goal would have just been crazy. But in the third, you would see the Hurricanes end up getting their first goal thanks to Jordan Staal, longtime Hurricane, before another veteran would provide some goal scoring. That would be Evgeny Kuznetsov as they have a 2-1 lead. Jordan Martinhook ends up getting a goal as well. It is now a 3-1 lead for the Hurricanes, and Martin Necas ends up getting an empty net goal as the Hurricanes are able to win this one on the road 4-1 and send the series back south, trying to then again get back up north to MSG. So we're back down in Raleigh, and you have a game for the Hurricanes where they know they have to win, but the reality of making it to Game 7 is right there as opposed to them being down 3-0. And you would see Martin Necas end up scoring the first goal of this game as they go up 1-0. And Seth Jarvis is able to score on the power play, as I believe it's just the second power play goal for the team at this point in the series, as they have a multi-goal lead at home and are in a great spot to go on and win this. Vincent Trocheck would get the Rangers on the board as it's now a 2-1 game, but Sebastian Aho providing a huge goal as it is again 3-1, and there are now 20 minutes separating the Hurricanes from going on and winning this game and advancing to Game 7 and possibly becoming just the 5th team in hockey history to come back from a 3-0 series deficit. Again, couldn't believe what happened here in the third, as it is truly something that will go down in the record books. And that's because of how things unraveled, as you would see Chris Kreider end up scoring not 1, not 2, but 3 unanswered goals for the Rangers as they went from being down 3-1 to being up 4-3. Goodrow would score an empty net goal, and the Rangers would go on to win this series thanks to a 5-3 win. And this is so big because they would have had to go back in Game 7 after losing 3 in a row, and instead now can focus on the Eastern Conference Final. So looking back at this series, probably not one that either team is exactly thrilled about how things went and how tense some moments were. But looking at this, you could see that the Hurricanes struggled to keep New York Stars under control, as you'd see guys like Lafreniere get going and have probably his best run in the playoffs to this point in his career. You would see Kreider have a third period in Game 6. They ended up winning the Rangers this series when they very well could have lost it in 7. Artemi Panarin averaged over a point per game, and I believe Mika Zibanejad did as well. And this was not something that you wanted to see if you were the Hurricanes. Another thing is too, despite the fact they ended up having a huge lead in shots for the series, especially at different points in some games, they ended up going 2 for 21 on the man advantage, and that in particular is something that's going to cost you, especially when the Rangers were able to score multiple power play goals in different games. Not anything that you can be too thrilled about, knowing that you had a good power play percentage during the regular season, but in the postseason, especially this round, things did not work out for them. Now, to be fair to the Hurricanes, you could probably argue that overtime did have a huge factor in this series, as if the Hurricanes end up winning those 2 OT games, they're probably in a spot where they're going on to the Eastern Conference Final. But again, not a lot of people are going to remember this team specifically, or just look back at a lot of previous second round matchups and say, oh well, this team was on the brink there if they just won a couple of overtime games. No, typically it's going to be looked at about the Stanley Cup final and matchups like that rather than early playoff exits and how things could have played out. Still a tough fight, but for the Hurricanes, they end up getting sent home. And in part two, you have to give credit to Igor Shesterkin. I believe it was game 3 where he had 54 saves. Had some games where he ended up having to have over 40 saves in order to pick up the victory for the Rangers. And the Blue Shirts have to thank their goalie for helping. I know there were some games that ended up not being great in terms of save percentage, but yes, Shesterkin 8 points in the series was a huge reason as to why they're now just one round away from appearing in the Stanley Cup final. So for the Carolina Hurricanes, their season comes to a close. Relatively disappointing as once again they are not able to go to the Stanley Cup final, and this year they take a step back after being in the Eastern Conference final last year. They were a team that went out and got Ginsel, and I think he cooled off a little bit in the series in terms of points and things like that, but they were still a fun team that you're hoping could possibly go out there and in their title drought. I don't exactly know what's going to happen here, as again, Ginsel probably gone, and some other guys too could be gone, as the Hurricanes have to figure out exactly what they want to do to be able to break through here in the playoffs, as they fail to be able to get there again. They're one of the league's better teams in the regular season. They're able to win division titles, they're able to go relatively deep in the playoffs, but they have still failed to even make it to the Stanley Cup final during this era that they're in. And in a few years, is the window going to be closed? I mean, that is up for debate. As for the New York Rangers, they are headed to the Eastern Conference Final for the second time in 3 seasons, and they won the President's Trophy. They, of course, won their division with all this stuff and are looking to make it to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time since 2015 and win it for the first time since 1994. They are going to go on to play either the Boston Bruins or the Florida Panthers, and that matchup should be a good one, and I am hoping for the Rangers. They're able to have a good series there, and their stars are able to shine. You're probably going to need some more from some of these other guys that aren't the big-name players if they're going to go on to the Stanley Cup final, but they took out a good team in Carolina. They were able to handle business with the Washington Capitals and are a side that maybe they are good enough to go out there and win the championship and in that title drought, because New York fans would go crazy for it. Maybe not Islanders fans, but there is a little bit of a difference between these two fan bases in terms of how they view each other, and we will see how that goes. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this series? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Hey, have a great night. And you go to Hockey, alright. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.